How does magic work? Well, nobody knows for sure. At least no one can prove it. Different traditions have different explanations about where magic comes from. But if we want to be able to work together and do magic as a group, regardless of our individual traditions, then we're going to have to find a way to talk about this in a way that goes beyond the individual beliefs. And that's why today we're going to talk about the models of magic. Like I said in my introduction, I want this show to be about all forms of magic. I want people from different magical traditions to be able to work together, come together, and share experiences and share knowledge. Now, the problem with that is every tradition has their own language. Every tradition has their own beliefs on where magic comes from and how magic works. So we really need to develop a common language, some way that we could talk about things, theorize about things, and be able to understand each other. Because nowadays, there's so much information on both ancient and modern traditions, and it's inevitable that things are going to become fragmented, that people are going to follow their bliss and just keep going down the rabbit hole of one specific tradition. And when you do that, you get to a point where you can't even talk to other people about magic because they don't understand what you're talking about. And this is something that I run into all the time. Now, to me, the greatest gift that chaos magic has given to the magical community at large is a common language, a paradigm neutral language, something that can talk about concepts beyond tradition. So today I want to talk about a chaos magic concept called the Models of Magick. Now, the Models of Magick were presented by a guy named Frater UD. Now, Frater UD is a little bit of a controversial figure in chaos magic. If you want to go look up what that's all about, go ahead. But the interesting thing is these models of magic are still a foundational part of chaos magic. And that's kind of a testament to their usefulness, at least as a way of conversing. Now, of course, I don't totally agree with Frater UD in some of it, and I kind of switch it up a little. This is going to be the models of magic from my own perspective. So the first model I want to talk about is the meta model. Now, this ends up the last on the list for Frater UD as kind of this answer to everything. And the meta model simply states, use whatever model works best. Well, gee, thanks, Frater UD. That's real helpful because he doesn't give us much information on which model might be best for any particular situation. And it also kind of falls into a trap that a lot of people fall into, including myself. I'm kind of guilty of this, where they see the models of magic as, I'm going to pick one and I'm going to run with it. And that's really a poor choice. Really what you should be doing is accepting that any of these models can be a possibility, that all of these models are a possibility, and that magic itself can't be explained in any one particular way. So I'm kind of tossing out the meta model here. I think it's kind of not useful. It's just not pertinent to the subject. So model number one on his list and my list is the spirit model. And this is the one I'm guilty of. This is the one that I'm pretty firmly a believer in, although I do move outside of it from time to time. So the spirit model says that all magic comes from some kind of outside agency, spirits. And that could be demons, angels, spirits of the land, spirits of the air, the elements. Everything comes to magic through the spirits. And the job of the magus is to communicate with the spirits in order to achieve their goals. It can be said, historically, this was probably the first model. Animism is essentially the spirit model, and animism is considered the first religion, for lack of a better word. So in the spirit model, it does continue, though, out from ancient times. There's a thread of the spirit model that runs all the way through the Western esoteric tradition. And today you can find it the strongest mostly in Goetia, which is very much an extension of the spirit model, very much an extension of animism, in that it's all about contacting outside agency in order to get things done. The next model on our list is the energy model. The belief that certain forces or energies can be manipulated by the magus in order to achieve results. The energy model has a history, but it's not quite as certain as we are with the spirit model. Prehistoric evidence is lacking, probably because the concept of energy is so nebulous that it would be difficult to conclusively say, just looking at artifacts, that this is a belief in energy. So probably the first thing you can point to is the Greek concept of aether. Now, the energy model really took off after the scientific revolution, because at that point we were already measuring forces that were previously undetectable. So that's why the New Age movement has really embraced the energy model, because those two things kind of grew up side by side. So you have a lot in the New Age of orgone, vibes. My one complaint about the energy model is that the people who use it tend to be very vague. They don't really have a straight answer for what this energy is and where it comes from. At least some of them don't. There are some people who are using the energy model quite effectively. There are people out there who have good reasoning for their energy model practices. And it's not a hard model to accept, considering what we know about forces and energies from science. Model number 3 on our list, the psychological model. Now I'm going to say this, and I hope it doesn't annoy people, but I think the psychological model is really popular today because ultimately people want to be able to talk to their friends and their family about their practice without sounding like they're crazy. They don't want to admit that they actually believe in these things, so they say, well, it's all just a part of psychology. Now, the psychological model says that you make changes in yourself through your subconscious in order to achieve results. And of course, the history of this only goes back as far as psychology itself. You can see it in the writings of Carl Jung with the belief in the collective unconscious, guys like Rupert Sheldrake, who has his theory of morphic resonance, which is incredibly interesting. I recommend you check that out. And through those beliefs, the psychological model kind of expands. Because if you're affecting your mind, you're also affecting a kind of collective unconscious. This also leads to theories that everything in the universe itself, is simply your own perception. And therefore, if you're changing your perception, you're changing the universe. And I can see how that can lead to a big ego trap. But at the same time, once again, I've seen a lot of people use the psychological model and get good results. Ultimately, I think my problem with the psychological model is it kind of reduces magic to a sort of self-help system. And I've seen results in magic that really just can't be explained by that. So probably the best thing you can do when looking through the lens of the psychological model is to remember the words of the magician Lanmail Duquette, it's all in your head, you just don't know how big your head is. And that your consciousness may well lie somewhere outside of yourself, some part of a larger universe. The fourth model, the information model. Now, when naming this, I think that Frater UD was kind of copying Peter Carroll. Peter Carroll, didn't really have a name for his new magical system, and since chaos theory was all the rage at the time, he decided to call it chaos magic. I don't think Frater UD has a good grasp on what information theory is. At least he doesn't describe it very well. But I do kind of like this model, and I think it has some good bones to it. Mankind has always been looking for what is the foundational particle of the universe. And through that, we've discovered the atom and subatomic particles. Information theory says that the smallest unit of measurement in the universe is not something physical at all, but it is the bit, the yes or no, the information that informs all of these particles and how they operate within the universe. Now, there have been some studies out there using Buddhist monks and something akin to the double slit experiment, if you guys are familiar with that, which shows that meditation has the ability to change the direction of subatomic particles. Now, people are in the process of doing peer review on that. But if that's true, and you couple that with the theory of quantum entanglement, and that any particle is entangled with another particle and information can be transferred between them through any distance across time and space, then you have something that's really explanatory. That's something that, okay, we can actually get a grasp on this both from a scientific and magic point of view. It's early days for the information model. Another problem with the information model is, well, it doesn't have a tradition. So how are we going to manipulate this information is something that's going to have to be invented, or perhaps seen as a part of the ancient rituals and give us a better understanding of them. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation about the models of magic. I hope they're useful for you in examining your own practice. And mostly I hope it's a way to start conversations with other practitioners so that we can learn from each other and we can work together and we can all have a common language to use when we do it. You guys know the drill. The only way this channel is going to grow and continue is to hit that like and subscribe button. One of the best ways to support the channel is to head over to scarletibisapothecary.com. That's my store where I sell candles, incense, and sacred oils. All the tools and the materials that go into our products are blessed and consecrated. I think they're great to use for your magical practice or just to add an element of magic to your personal space. You can use the discount code Scroll of Thoth to get 10% off your order. We'll see you next time.